we have an Abigail Spanberger, someone who wants to be governor, and I thought it was she didn't have courage. I see now it's even worse than that. She's made political calculations. She's very cunning. And to have a cunning, calculating person as governor of our great Commonwealth of Virginia is worse. And so we just cannot have her. She cannot be there. She doesn't make common sense for what people really care about, which are, how much money do I get to keep because you're going to raise my taxes, which she's already said. Will I have the energy that I need to power my business, which she only wants solar and wind? And I don't know. There's been a nor'easter come through. So what would we do then? We'd be like Maryland, where they have just green energy, by the way, and their cost of living has gone up 22%. And then finally, are you going to keep me safe and secure? Are you going to make sure that my children can walk the street? No, because she's voted to keep our borders open. She's voted for those who are illegally here, pedophiles, murderers, and rapists to stay right here. She even voted for, to get rid of the police through defunding them, as well as getting rid of their qualified immunity. So she's just not right for us. She needs to go run for governor of California.
All right, guys, I hope you had a good weekend. I was actually rather productive this weekend. A little yard work, a little interior stuff, a lot of projects that started that didn't get in, but I digress. A huge day today for the world, and that's, I think, an understatement, to be honest. You think about what President Trump did, bringing peace to the Middle East, in Israel, addressing the Knesset this morning, in Egypt, and then flying back to the United States. He will be back just after like 1 a.m., 2 a.m. here. Unbelievable. The guy did, by the way, I was amazed at the schedule. I know there's so much going on that no one did this. This guy literally took off Sunday afternoon, lands in Israel, speaks to the Knesset, tons of meetings, greets the hostages, then gets on a plane, goes to Egypt, then gets on a plane after that and heads back to the United States. There's not even a hotel stop. It was unbelievable. At 3:30 a.m. Eastern time, though, the historic release of those hostages held over 2 years from Gaza out. Amazing, amazing. President got a welcome fit for a hero today in the Knesset. It was unbelievable. He walks in and it was unreal. One story that I heard from another correspondent was they were broadcasting live in Tel Aviv, and they broadcast President Trump's remarks, but not Netanyahu, because Trump is so much more popular. But I want to play you just a few minutes of what he said to the Knesset. Take a listen.
The story of fierce Israeli resolve and triumph since October 7th should be proof to the entire world that those who seek to destroy this nation are doomed to bitter failure. The state of Israel is strong, and it will live and thrive forever.
All right. I mean, that was pretty unbelievable. And the cheers were unreal. This is going to go down as probably one of the most historic moments in modern history, especially. I know a lot of people are, will it hold? Will it not? I mean, just to even get here, to bring all of these disparate interests together was pretty unbelievable. Pretty unbelievable. We are entering day 13 of the government shutdown, the Pentagon trying to make sure all the troops get paid. President over the weekend directing the Pentagon to use all available funds to continue to pay the military. Ingenious of the guy to make sure that if he doesn't do this, because otherwise, if the Senate hadn't passed the House CR, the continuing resolution, by today, military members wouldn't be paid on the 15th. But Trump's saying, hey, divert some additional funds that you guys have, research and development, procurement, whatever, and make sure that these guys get paid. A big deal. As I said, Winsome Earle-Sears is on the show, and then the reporter from National Review that broke the J. Jones story, we'll have her as well. But this is going to be a big, big deal. I want to play you the latest Winsome Earle-Sears ad in Virginia to show what an impact this is having, and then we'll have an opportunity to talk to her about it.
Start with breaking news from the campaign trail.
J. Jones is under fire tonight.
J. Jones is under fire.
J. Jones is under fire after messages he sent in 2022 saying former Virginia House Speaker Todd Gilbert should be shot.
I'm excited about this ticket.
It's been great to be out on the campaign trail with J. Jones.
You said Gilbert's wife could watch her own child die in her arms so that Gilbert might reconsider his political views.
We deserve an attorney general who will stand up for the people of Virginia.
Jones said, quote, Gilbert, Hitler, and Pol Pot. Gilbert gets 2 bullets to the head.
Let your rage
Jones doubled down, saying, quote, "Do I think Todd and Jennifer are evil and that they're breeding little fascists? Yes."
How can Virginians trust a man who said something so horrific, so callously?
Only when people feel pain personally do they move on policy.
All right, pretty amazing. And by the way, not only is she coming up tomorrow, President's pollster Jim McLaughlin. On Wednesday, Glenn Beck and Senator Eric Schmidt are going to be here. On Friday, Steve Bannon. Yeah, that's a huge lineup. Make sure you're hitting that subscribe and notification button so you don't miss anything. And go over the audio version. Always subscribe to the audio version just in case. It's always a good backup. You never know when you're going to be able to travel. And think about that week. Steve Bannon, Eric Schmidt, Glenn Beck, Jim McLaughlin, all on the show this week. You're not going to want to miss any, and it totally helps us. So selfishly, just going to the audio version on Apple and Spotify and signing up, super helpful. By the way, we had a great rant this weekend on Bad Bunny being chosen to be the halftime speaker. Thankfully, Turning Point USA already announced an alternative halftime show with a ton of alleged performers. I say alleged because apparently it's not confirmed. Kid Rock, Travis Tritt, John Rich, Ted Nugent, Jason Aldean, apparently all considering performing. It's going to be amazing. So before I bring in Winsome Sears, though, I got to tell you, if speaking of the Super Bowl, you know what you want to do during the Super Bowl? Snack. So get ready for the Super Bowl now because this is what I do. All weekend long, all Super Bowl long, crunch on some amazing matzo chips. These are the blue. You can see empty bag. Already crushed those. I'm working on a bag of the original upstairs. I've had the lime. I'm telling you guys, back in the day, snack foods were all cooked in tallow. Now it's all ultra processed seed oils. No way. Matzo chips has 3 ingredients: corn, seed oil, corn, beef tallow, and salt. That's it. 3 ingredients. And they are amazing. I love these things. My kids love them. You can feel like you're actually having a good, healthy snack when you do this. So go to massachips.com/Sean and use code Sean for 25% off. Highly recommend the variety pack. It is amazing. You get all the different flavors and try for yourself. All of them are awesome as far as I'm concerned. Go to massachips.com/Sean, SEAN, code word Sean for 25% off. And again, pro tip, try the variety pack. All right. You guys have seen all the delays, cancellations that are wreaking havoc on our air traffic control system because it's outdated. It's decades old. That's the problem. And there's safety issues. There's timing issues. If you're trying to get somewhere, you want to have reliability and safety when it comes to flying. Luckily, in our big, beautiful bill, President Trump put the $1 billion+ for upgrading the air traffic control system. And here's the cool thing. There's a company called Peraton. It's got the people, the innovation, and the technology. And Peraton's already working in the national security space with NASA, the Department of Defense, national security agencies, and things like that. Peraton is part of the solution. If you go to peraton.com/ATC, air traffic control, peraton.com/ATC, you can see all of the great stuff that this company has and is ready to step up to the plate and make air traffic control safer and more reliable. There's no ask, there's no buy, there's no nothing. Just check out this great American company that's ready to continue to serve our country and get our air traffic control up to speed. Peraton.com/ATC, just to check it out, because the future of air traffic control is here. All right, without further ado, I want to bring in Virginia's current lieutenant governor and the gubernatorial nominee and next governor of the Commonwealth of Virginia, Winsome Earle-Sears. Lieutenant Governor, good to see you. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, Sean. It's a wonderful day, especially now that the debate is over and this is now the end stretch.
Yeah, I want to get into politics in a second, but today we share a birthday. It's the Navy Marine Corps 250th birthday today. Oh, well, the Navy's birthday. And as you know, as a good Marine knows that, they're a part of the Navy.
Don't start, Sean. Today is not the day for that.
It's not. We are a few days away from the election. Look, new polls came out from Trafalgar. This is a dead heat. Tell me how things have changed in the last 10 days for you guys.
Yeah, our polls have actually been much better than the mainstream media has been saying. That the Democrats been polling people who aren't even registered to vote. Think about that. Not even registered to vote. And so when you just watch what my opponent, Abigail Spanberger, has been doing, that she knows that the polls are much closer than the mainstream was saying. And now they're really having to say, well, wow, things have changed. And that's because, we have an Abigail Spanberger, someone who wants to be governor, and And I thought it was she didn't have courage. I see now it's even worse than that. She's made political calculations. She's very cunning. And to have a cunning, calculating person as governor of our great Commonwealth of Virginia is worse, is worse. And so we just cannot have her. She cannot be there. She doesn't make not common sense for what people really care about, which are, how much money do I get to keep because you're going to raise my taxes, which she's already said. Well, I have the energy that I need to power my business, which she only wants solar and wind. And I don't know, there's been a nor'easter come through. So what would we do then? We'd be like Maryland, where they have just green energy, by the way, and their cost of living has gone up 22%. And then finally, are you going to keep me safe and secure? Are you going to make sure that my children can walk the street? No, because she's voted to keep our borders open. She's voted for those who are illegally here, pedophiles, murderers, and rapists to stay right here. She even voted for, to get rid of the police through defunding them, as well as getting rid of their qualified immunity. So she's just not right for us. She needs to go run for governor of California.
Maybe that's your new slogan. Don't Maryland my Virginia, right? I mean,
exactly.
When you ran for lieutenant governor, Terry McAuliffe had this moment where he famously now said, parents shouldn't be involved in what goes on in schools. And that really was a change in the dynamic in the last few weeks. This Jay Jones moment, these texts that came out, he is the lieutenant governor nominee of the Democratic Party.
Talking the Attorney General.
My apologies. Yes. But he threatened to kill Todd Gilbert, the then Speaker of the House, and wish a horrible, horrible feat on his wife. And
my God.
She watched, right. So how much has this moment just really changed the momentum of the race in these final 30 days?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Think about it. You have somebody who wants death, murder on his political opponent, but it doesn't stop there. He wants murder for the man's children, his political opponent's children. And they're not even teenagers. They are 2 and 5 years old. And he calls them that his political opponent is breeding little fascists. This is the man who the Democrats have given us as nominee for Attorney General of our great Virginia? Don't think so. And then here is Abigail. How will you govern? Well, will you, are you only supporting certain people? Are you just disgusted by murder? Or are you going to do something about it? How will you be? We don't have to wonder. We know now. And that's why people are saying, wait a minute, hang on. Who is Abigail? You know who she is? She has lived a very carefully curated, very, very curated, very cultivated kind of life. I don't know many people who have lived that way. We live in the real world. Real things are happening to us. And you can see her almost plotting every step of her political career. She's going to do this for this many years, and she's going to leave and do this and do this. She's sort of Manchurian Candidate type of esque, but without, she's just, I don't know.
Well, here's the thing. When I talked to Robert Cahaley, who is the chief, the president of the Trafalgar Group, the polling outfit that shows this race at dead heat. And I said to him, what advice would you give the Republican ticket? He said the movement is particularly strong among older people, 65 plus. They're watching TV. They see this Jay Jones stuff. They've watched Abigail Spanberger refuse to ask him to get out of the race. So this is working well with older Americans. He said less so with younger Americans, younger Virginians who don't get their source of news from TV and the legacy media. He said, I would advise them to go strong on digital and strong on influencers. What have you guys done tactically different in the last 10 days to really get the word out about Abigail, her relationship with Jay Jones, her refusal to denounce and ask him to step off the ticket?
So let's not forget that it's not just Jay Jones himself who has that issue and her support and continued support of him, but it's Abigail herself. Abigail has said, even after Charlie Kirk's murder, she continues to say to her supporters, let your rage fuel you. Fuel you to do what, Abigail? Fuel them to come against me? Fuel them to come against my supporters, my side of the political aisle? Is this what a governor wants to do? And by the way, have you noticed that her supporters, they keep coming out with big signs that say 8647? Why are you, what kind of a people are you leading? Or who are your followers? And when are you going to tell them, get rid of those signs? But we know, again, she doesn't have, and it's not political courage, it's calculating. She's a calculating person. So what we have done is, now that we have more money, and by the way, let me tell you, we're raising money. I'm seeing people sending in $3 checks, $3 checks. They're the grassroots. They're the people who can't afford to help me, except they want to do something. And I'm looking at $3 and $4 checks and $5 and $10, and we're raising so much money that way. So now that we have the money, we're able to do even more streaming. And we've been cutting parts of the videos from the debate to show people this is who she is. Believe her. She will not protect us. She doesn't have the right ideas that have gotten Virginia where we are today, which is our economy is great. We're creating all these jobs. Jobs are flooding in, and we're protecting your right to work and not be forced to join a union, which will destroy our economy. Look at what's happening in Maryland. They have increased their taxes twice now, when they were left by a Republican governor with a $3 billion surplus. Now that they have a Democrat as governor, they're more than $3 billion in the hole. My opponent has said she's going to get rid of oil and gas in Virginia. And then what? Where is the energy going to come from? She knows nothing. She doesn't know how to do this. I am ready to take command on day one. I've been doing the work. Abigail, where have you been?
You know, the interesting thing is, speaking of Abigail, and you talk about her cunningness and calculation politically, in 2019, I believe it was, there were photos of then Governor Ralph Northam that came out that showed him either in blackface or a KKK outfit. We're still not entirely sure which one and how this all went down. She was quick to say the governor needed to step down then. A sitting governor had to sit down.
Yes.
But when Jay Jones, the attorney general nominee that she's endorsed, talks about actually killing a political opponent and wishing ill will on his family, she hasn't done it. You talk about how cunning she is, how calculating she is. Why do you think that is the case?
Well, because she wants to win. And she's thinking, if she tells Jay Jones to get out of the race, well, she's going to upset these people over here. And if she tells him to stay in the race, then she upsets these people over here. She's caught between a rock and a hard place. But you know what? That's what being governor is. Issues don't come very carefully packaged, and you address this one today, and then tomorrow another issue shows up where you have to show, well, not cunning certainly, but what's best for Virginia. And instead, no, you have a lot of issues coming back and forth and problems, and what are you going to do? And you got to address them. And you know what Abigail does? She figures out what's the best thing for Abigail. That's what Abigail does.
Let me give you my theory, because you said this group over here, this group over here. And as I thought about that, just from a political standpoint, I realized what she did when Governor Northam was in blackface. He had obviously offended a lot of Black Virginians, right, who found it offensive what he had posted this photo in his yearbook. And so she wanted to make sure that she was in good with them. And I think, and this is just my sort of, as I look at the through line between these two events, and I say, wow, if she asked Jay Jones to step down, who is the Black nominee for Attorney General, it seems like that might offend, that group as well. So to me, the consistency is that she is afraid of offending a key constituency of the Democratic Party right now. Do you agree with that?
I'm trying to figure her out, and I'm not really sure where she is, just because of her cunning and calculation. She's figuring something. She's figuring something. I'm not sure what that something is, but see, that's the problem. You got to make the right choice, and it's always the righteous choice, and it's very hard to do. And I've had to have that in my own life, and so have you. And then you've got to take your hits. You've got to take the hits. It's just the way things are. But, you got to live with yourself. when all is said and done. And your conscience, you try to have it clear as possible. She knows what the right thing to do, and the right thing is to have him leave the race, but she won't do it because she's afraid of some faction, some part of her party. And my God, we cannot have a calculating person like that as governor of Virginia.
Well, it's interesting because there's another big issue that you've been probing her on. That's men in women's bathrooms, boys and girls sports. She was asked about this. I think you've really put her on defense on this issue. I want to play a few seconds of a clip to show the audience the like how she was responding to this, because you put it out on Twitter. I want to play this for folks, just a few of the seconds to show how she responds when asked about this. Take a look.
What do you make of Earle-Sears' claim that you're fine with, quote, putting men in girls' locker rooms?
The reality is that the federal government has the ability to change the letter of the law, right? Through Congress, through the Senate, bills go to the president's desk. Right now, what we are seeing is there are differences between what is the law of the land under Title IX and what are executive orders put out by the White House. And in circumstances where there are conflicting evidence or conflicting interpretations, the reality is the federal government has to be clear in what is the real guidance available to our schools as it relates to use of locker rooms. The reality is that we have multiple jurisdictions who believe they are following the letter of the law and have their lawyers conveying why. And at the end of the day, we have a president of the United States who is taking away and threatening federal funding.
All right. That's enough. I mean, you get the point, but that to me is what I'm going to call a Spanberger salad. I thought Kamala did them really well. Abigail Spanberger clearly knows how to create a word salad now better than anybody. That was to me a non-answer of the highest proportion.
It's a simple answer. What she's doing is throwing responsibility back on everybody else when this is a matter of plain decency and privacy. And it's a yes or no. Do you believe that boys belong in locker rooms nude with girls nude? Do you believe that? Is it fair that girls are having to, play against boys, in violation of Title IX? It's a simple answer. And then if she can't even make that leap, do you want your girl children being forced to undress in front of men, in front of boys? If you can't answer that question, then there's something wrong with you, Abigail. There's really something wrong. And I don't understand why you can't just come out and take a stand. My God, just stand for something. She's so mealy-mouthed. She's so calculating. Stand for something, Abigail. But we know she has because she voted. She voted for men to be nude in locker rooms with our girls, with our women. That's what happened in Arlington. That's what has been happening in Fairfax. Pedophiles have come in. And by the way, it's not just there in Albemarle County. The high school girls have put online a petition to say they don't want boys in their bathrooms, because what they're saying now is that the boys are just walking into their bathrooms and just staring at them, having conversations with them in their bathrooms. Abigail, do you not care?
So, in the last week or so, 2 illegal aliens that were released into Virginia because of the Biden-Spanberger open borders policies fired on Virginia police. How big of an issue right now, as you go around the Commonwealth, is illegal immigration?
Oh, absolutely it is, because what we did, we found the number 3 MS-13 gang leader right here in Virginia. He is in some form of deportation to be gone back to his home country. We have found Chinese Communist Party gangs here. We have found African gangs. We have, you name it, cartels. We found them here. 4,000 of them. We're talking about rapists and pedophiles, and murderers and drug dealers and all of that. They're in some form of being gone. 4,000 of them. But had Abigail and Biden voted to close our borders, we wouldn't even be talking about this. But all of that open borders, fentanyl streamed across the border, and it killed over 20 Virginians every month. And that's just the ones we know of. And then we know that child sex trafficking was happening. We know that rapists and all of that were happening at the border. This woman cannot be trusted to be our governor, to take care of us in the form of keeping us safe, in the form of creating jobs, in the form of making sure our own taxes stay in our pocket. She just doesn't care. I think Abigail is simply for Abigail.
So as we head into these final 30 days, we just listed off boys in girls' bathrooms, immigration, the Jay Jones issue. Obviously, we're in day 13 of a government shutdown. What is probably the biggest issue that you see in your polling that's driving people in these final days from her to you or undecided to you?
Right. So it's all of what you've been saying, but I think even more so, it's that the debate woke people up. They saw a side to her, again, a very calculating side, a very aloof side, a very I don't really care about you side. I mean, because she wouldn't even acknowledge me. I'm turning to her to talk to her. Abigail, she doesn't say anything. She stands there. And then there were so many times when she had a smirk on her face, a smirk, as if, I don't, I'm above it all. I don't really care. Well, that's not how we elect our leaders. We elect our leaders from among us, not from above us. I've seen that in other countries. We don't worship our political leaders. No, you answer to us. I've been gone from politics for 20 years, Sean. I didn't come back to be mealy-mouthed. I don't really care about the politics of it all. I know. I want to know, do you care about me? Do you see me? Do you hear from me? Do you care to hear from me? I mean, again, I started a men's prison ministry, led it for 2 years. I mopped the floors at a homeless shelter, of course, because I was also a director there. But I've also mopped the floors at a food pantry. I'm not doing these things because I thought one day I'd use it in my politics. Sometimes you see politicians waiting to get into office, and then they say how kind they are, and they start visiting these places. I did that long before. I just want to know what's in Abigail's heart.
Yeah. You mentioned the money and such. Like who are the outside groups and resources of the party? What are they doing in these final days? RNC, Republican Governors Association. What are you seeing on the outside come in now to really help get you over the finish line?
Yeah, so RGA, the Republican Governors Association, they have come forward, and then there's some outside groups that they're working on, their side of what they're doing. And I have stood up what we call a victory campaign, because that's what you call it, at the Republican Party of Virginia's headquarters for the whole ticket, and so we're knocking on doors, we're sending out mailers, we're making phone calls, we're writing letters. We're doing everything that we know to do, and we're making sure that no one's duplicating efforts, because we can't afford to do that. If we knock this door, we don't need you to go there. We need you knocking on other doors to make sure everybody's hearing the message, and we're just doing it all. So if you need a bumper sticker, please get to winsomesears.com or winsomeforgovernor.com, get a yard sign, get a bumper sticker, help us, because our win is our win. It's not a win for me. It's a win for all of us, because I want to live in a Virginia that cares. I want to live in a Virginia where the governor sees me, where the attorney general will fight for me, and where the lieutenant governor will uphold the principles of Virginia.
We're in the middle, as I mentioned, of a government shutdown. Is that affecting your campaign, either the ability to reach people negatively because they're blaming Republicans, whatever? I mean, but in Northern Virginia in particular, where there's a lot of government employees, and then obviously in the Hampton Roads area, where we have a big military presence, are you seeing the effects of the shutdown on your campaign at all?
No, because you see, Abigail, all summer, she's been using federal workers as her very own political football in a game she's playing that she loves federal workers more than anybody else. Well, as I said, what love looks like is to keep federal workers in their jobs because they have bills to pay. And I believe last week was the last paycheck that they received. And now they're in a shutdown where the money isn't coming in. Love means that she must tell Warner and she must tell Kane, our two senators here in Virginia, go do your jobs. Go do your job and keep the government open by making sure federal workers are in their jobs. That's what love looks like, Abigail, and you've not done that. You said you love them enough to make sure they stay in their jobs. That's what it is. And you and I are military people, right? We're veterans. And especially in the enlisted ranks, which I was, we need our money. It is terrible that we have our military folks, and I've seen them now, they're lining up at food banks wanting to get food, and yet they're there to protect us. How could we do this? Abigail needs to tell her side of the political aisle, the Democrats, stop playing games and trying to one up Republicans. Republicans have voted to keep the government open, and we just needed 7. We needed 7 Democrats, senators, to say, I'm going to do that too. I think we're down to 5 now. We just need 5. Can we get 5? Can we get 5? And two of those are from Virginia.
Last question I want to ask you. I spoke to the president in the Oval Office the other day, asked him about support for the Republican ticket in Virginia. He seemed kind of non-committal. Have you had any discussions with the president or the White House about getting the president in to support you in the ticket in the final days?
So we've had conversations. I mean, think about it. I'm from a third world country. And for me to be in this position, I mean, it's only God. Only God has gotten me here. And here I am in the White House, in the Oval Office. And I'm just like, wow. And so the conversations I've had with the president, they're going to have to stay confidential.
But are you guys asking
for
them?
But we welcome his endorsement, of course.
Okay. So you guys would you want a rally or something like that in the final days?
However the president sees fit. Yes.
Yeah. And last, because when you touched on your faith, after the assassination of Charlie Kirk, I noticed personally a lot of people going to church, to mass for the first time ever. As you travel the Commonwealth, are you seeing young people either get involved, go to church, get more faith involved? How is that sort of really taken hold? Because I think a lot of people want to get involved. And they said, if I live in New Jersey, I can get involved. If I live in Virginia, I can get involved.
Yes.
Have you seen it on the ground?
Yes. You know, I think that all of us are charged to make the darkness tremble. We need light in our lives. And so that's why when I was asked during the debate, what do you think about unforgiveness? It eats you alive. We don't want to live that way. And so Charlie wanted people to forgive. And so that's why, God bless her, his wife, Erica, said we must forgive. And I think our young people are seeing that they must take their place in society. They're coming up the hill, and it's their charge now.
Yeah. Listen, thanks for coming on. Get out there. I was with her the other day, guys, and I think I showed up at this event at the end of the day, and she'd been 17 stops already. There's no one that's working harder right now to keep the Republican conservative message alive than Winsome Sears. I know you got a million things probably on your agenda today. Good luck. Stay safe in these final days, and let's pull it over the top. I think this is going to – I'm so excited for election night. I think you and the entire ticket's going to win, and then Jack Ciattarelli's going to win in New Jersey as well. Big night ahead for us.
Thank you.
You bet. All right. Thanks to Winsome for doing that. I'm not kidding. This woman is a dynamo. She's all over the Commonwealth every day, talking to everybody. The money's coming in. Message needs to get out. I'm telling you, this is going to be just like the last time. The polls, the media had everyone betting against the current ticket, Governor Youngkin, Lieutenant Governor Sears, and Attorney General Miyares. It's going to flip. All going to win, and New Jersey's going Republican. And then what? The Dems are going to blame everybody but themselves. I don't really care who they blame, but it's going to be funny to watch. All right. I have the reporter that broke that Jay Jones story, Audrey Fahlberg from National Review. All right. Before I bring in Audrey, though, I want to tell you, Halloween's just around the corner. And I know we always go to the supermarket and just get the random candy, but I have a better idea for you. There is a gourmet cookie company out there called Kexi. And these things are making cookies. Kexi makes cookies so good that everybody talks about, where'd you get that cookie? How can I get one? And this Halloween, they've put together something very special. Kexi has a Halloween cookie box packed with 6 killer cookies. And they want to give you treats that you'll actually remember to make sure that everyone says, I remember that house. I know what I got on Halloween from them. A Kexi cookie, a Halloween Kexi cookie. They are amazing. They've got a mummy cookie that's a chocolate cookie stuffed with Nutella and packed with white chocolate and then topped with their homemade frosting. They've got 5 other cookie flavors in the Halloween package. I know, guys, look, it's not necessarily Maha, but it's Halloween. You get a little pass on that day alone. Kexi ships straight to your door, but supplies are limited. These things sell out when they do these boxes. So once Halloween is gone, forget it. You cannot get it. Get the Kexi Halloween box right now by going to Kexi, KEKSI.com, KEKSI.com. And if you want to try any of their other cookies, not the Halloween ones, but any other ones, you can use code Sean15 at the checkout for 15% off. But I'm telling you, they don't even do it on these Halloween ones because they are such in limited demand and supply. You've got to go to Kexi, KEKSI. Any of the other cookies that are amazingly good as well, you can just go and enter code Sean, SEAN 15 and get 15% off. All right, I want to bring in Audrey Fahlberg from National Review, who broke that Jay Jones story. Audrey, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here.
Thanks so much for having me.
Okay, so this Jay Jones text thread about him going after Speaker Todd Gilbert and then wishing ill will on his family, that has changed the entire trajectory of the race in Virginia. How did it happen?
How did the story happen, or how did the scandal?
Oh, yeah, the story.
So I'd heard this percolating for several months. It's so funny. People keep calling my story an opposition research dump, but let me tell you, it took a lot of effort to get this one. I'd heard rumors about this for a while, didn't actually get the goods until the week I reported this story. But look, what I think is most surprising about this story is the context. So he was texting these extremely disturbing things, fantasizing about murdering a former Republican political adversary. The context of that discussion was his frustration with Republican state legislators in Virginia, how they were eulogizing a recently deceased moderate Democrat. So these aren't drunk texts for this guy, by the way. He's texting these extremely disturbing things at 8 a.m.
But he's also texting him to a legislature, Carrie Conoyer, who is a Republican delegate. Did he know her? Was he serving with her? Were they buddies?
So at the time, Jay Jones, this conversation happened on August 8th, 2022. Jay Jones had resigned from the state legislature the prior year in 2021. So he texted her by accident. At the beginning of the text thread, he said that he meant to send it to somebody else named Mark, unclear who Mark was. But then he kept doubling down and quadrupling down to the point where he called this woman, his former Republican colleague, and doubled down and suggested that the only way for then Republican Speaker Todd Gilbert to change his views on his political views with respect to gun violence is if his wife saw his child die in her own arms. So these are extremely disturbing things. And, Virginia Democrats thus far, I mean, we haven't seen any nationwide or high profile Democrats in Virginia calling on him to step down. And as you know, the timing is tricky for them, right? I mean, by the time my story broke, hundreds of thousands of Virginians had already cast their ballots. We're just a few weeks out from Election Day, so they don't really have a backup strategy here.
So here's the question, and I want to be careful because I know you guys like to protect your sources, but it seems to me that if Jay Jones is texting this Republican delegate, that either she has to give those texts to you or she shared them with somebody else and they gave them to you. Does she admit that she gave them out now?
So as she said in a statement, following for my story, I did not get these from her or anybody actually named in my story. She acknowledged in her statement to me and other outlets that at the time she received those texts that day, she sent them to Todd Gilbert because he was obviously the person being targeted in the text. He actually didn't send those to me either. So with a lot of these things that, texting conversations, a reminder to all politicians, things have a way of, once they're sent to somebody else, they get spread elsewhere. Right. So you got to be careful.
Yeah. You mentioned something that's interesting and fascinating. Jay Jones was in the House of Delegates in Virginia and randomly resigned one day. To this day, apparently there's a lot of mystery surrounding why he resigned. Have you been able to get into that at all?
Look, I may or may not be reporting a story on this, but there are tons of rumors swirling around. That question has not been fully adjudicated, but at the time, he said he wanted to focus on his family. That kind of seems to be the case. The exact kind of details remain unclear. But look, a lot of other things about this guy before my story broke were pretty controversial. During his time in the House of Delegates, he had a legislative record, a very progressive legislative record that a lot of Republicans pan as soft on crime. And then, of course, actually the same week that my story broke, that reckless driving conviction from a few years ago was reported in the Richmond Times-Dispatch. They had a great piece about how a few years ago he was convicted for driving 116 miles per hour on an interstate in Virginia, New Kent County, 46 miles above the speed limit. His punishment was a $1,500 fine and 1,000 hours of community service, 500 of which were served for his own PAC. So with a few weeks to go until Election Day, the new Commonwealth attorney for New Kent is actually investigating the matter. So my sources tell me that the things to look out are, maybe there is nothing fishy here, but the prosecutor is going to be looking into, at the time, did Jay Jones disclose his connections to that PAC? And did he actually serve those 500 hours? 500 hours is that's a lot of time, right?
Oh my gosh, yeah. I mean, you think about a 40-hour work week, right? So that's, 15 weeks? And you're doing it to your own political action committee, which I don't know how any court would have approved.
Right. So there's going to be a lot of investigation into that matter. Republicans, of course, are going to be highlighting any headlines related to that investigation. And again, whether he actually served those hours, whether the executive director of the PAC was aware of those connections, whether any documents were forged. Again, he could have been completely legally compliant with all of this, but my sources tell me that it's totally worth investigating. And again, Republicans are counting their lucky stars that it's more than just a texting scandal, which was already bad enough for this guy.
Yeah, I gotta believe though. I mean, the funny thing is, I would just drive the texting issue all day long, every day, because I get the other one is kind of shady, but I think a lot of people believe that politicians are shady anyway. But the idea that somehow somebody was okay with the idea of serving community service at your own, like the political action committee, that's not that's a political venture. That's fine. That's great. But it's clearly not serving the greater good of the community, which I think is what community service is all about. So I don't know how he ever got away with that. The other issue, apparently, though, that's come out is some conversations that he is alleged to have had where he says that police must die before they address qualified immunity.
Yes. So that was Brandon Jarvis with the Virginia Scope. He had a great piece. So he quoted Carrie Coyner, who was the same woman who was on the texting thread in my story. So he reached out to her, and she says that he said that he denies that. He said that the quote about wanting police officers to die. But, Republicans are obviously, again, having a field day with this story. Look, he is really under fire here. Democrats, again, it's stunning that I believe one state legislative candidate said that he should withdraw. I interviewed Denver Riggleman last week, the anti-Trump, pro-Spanberger former congressman for Virginia who worked on the January 6th House Select Committee. A friend of Democrats these days, not a friend of Republicans. He told me he's voting for Jason Miyares. But beyond that, we're not seeing a big swell of Virginia Democrats calling on the guy to withdraw. Again, they're in a really tough spot here. It's going to be really tricky for Winsome Earle-Sears to overcome Spanberger's polling lead at the top of the ticket. This texting scandal, Republicans are optimistic that this will close the gap a little bit. But Jason Miyares, Republicans are feeling very confident about his chances now.
Oh, yeah. If you look at the latest Trafalgar polling, Jason's well outside the margin of error. But I think, look, I've said this all along, Audrey, that you want to be riding the tide into the beach, not trying to hold it back. And right now, that's where Winsome is. And she's 2 points down in Trafalgar, but the bigger point is she was down 5-6 before. You're moving in the right direction. The other thing that I thought was fascinating about Jay Jones's initial response to your piece was he said that it was a Jason Miyares, what did he say, opposition research dump to a MAGA-friendly Oppo outlet.
Oh, no. Trump-controlled National Review. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you guys get a kick of that? I just thought to myself, that's pretty pathetic. You're basically blaming your own text on somebody else.
Oh, yeah. We got a kick out of it. I'm sure you personally got a kick out of it. The president to call us Trump controlled. Peruse our website for 30 seconds and you'll realize very quickly that is not the case. What also stood out to me in that initial statement is he said, I'm paraphrasing here, like everybody else, I send texts that I regret, we all have done this, blah, blah, blah. he didn't include in his initial statement the words, "I'm sorry, Todd Gilbert," like a sincere apology until about I believe like 11 hours actually after I initially came to him for comment. But look, Democrats were really appalled and frustrated and disappointed with this news and also with how he responded. So I wrote a piece, actually a follow-up piece last week about how, his initial assessment, his team, was that because it's run a conservative outlet, that it wouldn't gain steam in the mainstream, among mainstream reporters. That quickly obviously ended up not being the case. Hence, this, as it cascaded throughout the day, he had to issue a kind of a mea culpa, sincere apology. But look, Democratic fundraisers, donors are extremely frustrated. They bet on this guy, not just for this particular race, but look, Tim Kaine and Mark Warner, the two senators for Virginia, they're still pretty sharp guys, but they're getting older. And, Democrats want to invest in somebody who can serve for a long time in Virginia politics. So they saw him as a long-term investment, but also a lot of these donors and fundraisers, they're embarrassed. Their friends are texting them, "Did you know about this guy? Like, did you know this kind of stuff would come out?" And so they're having to backtrack a little bit. So yeah, again, complete disaster for Democrats. The cleanup has been fascinating. But, another quick thing is, the Jones campaign and other high-profile Democrats who are trying to do damage control behind the scenes are telling any Democratic operatives to deflect from this story by turning it on Trump and saying, well, Virginia Republicans didn't call on Trump to resign the day after he issued the January 6th pardons. I'm serious. That's exactly what they're being told. And I have Democratic, mainstream hardcore Democrats telling me, Audrey, when I heard this, I'm like, oh, give me a break. Come on. I'm not going to compare this to Trump. We got to acknowledge that this is bad and find another way to deflect it.
Yeah, this is a textbook disaster, PR-wise, for Jay Jones, how he handled it, how he tried to deflect. Audrey Fahlberg, thanks for joining us. Congratulations on breaking this critical story, because I do believe that story is going to be I keep calling it the Terry McAuliffe moment from 2019. This is the moment that things are going to shift. So congratulations on being part of such a historic place in the political narrative, and all great work at National Review. Thank you.
Thanks so much for having me. Appreciate it.
You bet. Thanks for tuning in, guys. As I said, a huge, huge day. Tomorrow, Jim McLaughlin. Wednesday, Glenn Beck and Senator Eric Schmidt. Friday, Steve Bannon. Hit that button, you guys, to make sure you subscribe and get notifications, and then sign up for my column at SeanSpicer.com. Thanks for kicking off your week for us. We'll have a lot to break down for you tomorrow. See you then at 6. Well, if you enjoyed this content, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get more.